Hello guys, welcome to the fourth session of the Entity Framework Core 2.0 tutorials. In this session we will create a model of the below database which includes the two table, book and author. Book table contains the property like ID, title, description, author ID and price, and author table contains the author ID, name and mail ID. There is a one-to-many relationship between the author and book. Here author in the book class and the book in the author class are known as the navigation property. We will learn about this later in this session. Let's switch to Visual Studio. This is the same ASP.NET Core project that we have created in a previous session and setting up the environment for the Entity Framework Core. Right click on the model, select Add, New Class, named Author, and create a property for the each field that we are seeing the PowerPoint slide. Start with the author ID, which will be a type of integer, name of type string, and mail ID also of type string. And create a navigation property named book of type I collection of book named books. Be aware of selecting the property type and name because the entity framework will use those things to generate the database. However, we can change those using the model builder. We will see it later how to change. Here the books is a navigational property which is a type of I collection of book which will return the all of the book written by the specific author. It is just like the reference to the other entity. For navigation property, entity framework does not create any field in the table within the database. It just used like as a foreign key for the just reference between those two tables. Here I am use the I collection. However, you can also use the list or hash set which are extended from it. Let also create a book class that represent the book entity. I click on the model, add class book and create a properties for that class. Start with the ID of type int, title of type string, description also of a type string, author ID of type int, and the price of double. And create a navigation property author of type author. Here the ID will become the primary key for that table. By default, entity framework will interpret the property with the name ID or the class name ID as a primary key. Means that for this class, this ID will become the primary key, and for the our author class, author ID will become the primary key because it is class name ID. So that entity framework will treat it as a primary key, and those primary key fields are auto increment by default. In a book class, here the author property is a type of navigational property which contains the reference to the author who write that book. After creating the model, we need to create a context which will coordinate the functionality given by the data model. I am usually storing the context within the folder name data. So let's create the new folder, data. Within that, create a new class, name library context, and extend it from the DB context, which was present in the different namespace. So we need to import the Microsoft.Entity Framework core. So we need to using the Microsoft.Entity Framework core namespace and create a constructor within that class, which will take the DB context option as a parameter of type library context options, and we need to pass this to the its base constructor. So write base and pass the options, and we need to create the DB set that define the table within the database. For that we need to create the properties. So write the prop of type DB set of author name author. Here author is present in different namespace, so we need to import it. And similarly we need to also create a property for the book, DB set of type book name book. Here DB set property represents the entire table. Here I am created DB set for the both of model. However, it is not compulsory because they are reference to each other. Entity framework will automatically take care about the one if we are reference it and not right here. So if we are create the book only, so entity framework will automatically load the book. Entity framework will generate the DB name from the DB set property. Typically we are use the puller name for the property, where the database administrator not suggest to use the puller name for the table. We will see how to use the different name for the table in the later session. In this session we have created the model class and the context class for the entity framework. We will continue in the next session. If you have any doubt, feel free to contact me. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.